بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. I humbly ask Allah Ta'ala to grant each of us the good intention and the proper comprehension. Allahumma ameen. The author said, Section on Marriage and Divorce. The marriage contract, nikah in Arabic, has conditions and integrals that must be fulfilled for it to be valid. For the marriage contract to be valid, the word nikah, marriage, or what is equivalent in meaning, must be included. So the one who gives away in marriage must use the word marriage. Like he might say, for example, I give my daughter in marriage to you, or I marry my daughter off to you, or something that gives that meaning of giving in marriage. So you have the bride, the groom, and the rest of the people there. But usually, the one who conducts the marriage contract is the father. And he would give his daughter away in marriage to the groom, or the female appoints a Muslim person to give her off in marriage. And this is done in many communities, especially in the Indian subcontinent, that the female would authorize the imam, the religious figure, to conduct or facilitate the marriage contract. So she authorizes him to give her away in marriage. And it is valid for the free, accountable female to give herself away in marriage if she is 17 lunar years old or above. And neither the virgin nor the non-virgin pubescent female can be made to marry without their consent. What does that mean? It means that her consent must be sought. And amongst the conditions for the validity of the marriage to a Muslim woman is that two witnesses are present. So two male Muslim witnesses, and they also need to be pubescent. So it cannot be two 6-year-olds, for example, and it cannot be two women. It must be two men. And usually there are more than just two witnesses present. If a man divorces his wife once or twice, then during the iddah, the postmarital waiting period, he is permitted to take her back without a new marriage contract, without having to conduct a new marriage contract, by, for example, saying to her, I now bring you back into my marriage contract. And that is because a man possesses 3 divorces. The iddah period is different for different women. So this post-marital waiting period is different for different women. As you know, some women, they menstruate, and this is a category of women in this case. And a second type is a woman who does not menstruate. She doesn't have a period. She doesn't have a menses. Like a woman who has experienced menopause, for example. And a third type of woman is a woman who is pregnant. So these 3 women are put into 3 separate categories. That is because their post-marital waiting periods are different. They are different durations. Let's say there were 3 men, and each one divorced his wife whom he had a child with. They are 3 different families. So as soon as the man divorces her, she enters into her iddah. She enters into her post-marital waiting period. In family number 1, the woman was a menstruating woman. and she is not pregnant. She is, let's say, around 27 years old. Her iddah period, her post-marital waiting period, is 3 complete menstruations, meaning that her post-marital waiting period will last 3 complete menses. So she experiences a full menses and then a period of purity, and then a second menses and then a period of purity. And then when her third menses comes and then it finishes, then her iddah has ended. Her post-marital waiting period now has ended. So it wasn't exactly 3 months, but it was 3 complete menses, menstruational cycles. In family number 2, when the husband divorced his wife, let's say she was 65 years old, so she experienced menopause, then she is no longer menstruating. Her postmarital waiting period is 3 lunar months. So after those 3 lunar months are up, her iddah would be finished. And in family number 3, the man divorced his wife while she was pregnant in her 3rd month. So her iddah, her postmarital waiting period, it starts right away and it ends when she gives birth. So if she had a normal pregnancy, let's assume she had a normal pregnancy, then her iddah would be about 6 months, right? Because she was 3 months pregnant when he divorced her. So now that we have identified the different durations for the different women, let's mention what could happen within the iddah, within the post-marital waiting period. If any of these women complete their post-marital waiting period, it finishes, then that woman can now go and get married to someone else if she wanted to. Before that, she cannot. And if she wants to get back with her ex-husband who divorced her, they now require a new marriage contract. Now, if the woman is still within her iddah, she's still within her iddah time, but she did not complete it yet, so she didn't complete her postmarital waiting period, then the husband can return her to his marriage by merely saying, I return you to my marriage, without doing a new marriage contract and without needing witnesses and so on. This is for all of the women, as long as they are still within their iddah, and of course, this was not his 3rd divorce for her. So let's say if a man had divorced his wife once or twice, and now she's in her iddah, then he can bring her back into his marriage because he still has one more divorce. So he can bring her back into his marriage within her iddah. So the one who does not menstruate, the woman who does not menstruate, if he returns her back to his marriage 5 minutes after divorcing her, then she would be returned to his marriage without a contract. And likewise, if 5 minutes before the pregnant woman gives birth, her husband returns her to his marriage, then she would be returned as well without needing a new marriage contract. If he says this after she gives birth, that he returns her back to his marriage, then it would not work because her post-marital waiting period would have been finished already. Because we said that in her case, the pregnant woman, it ends when she gives birth. So if she gave birth and then he says that statement to try and return her back to his marriage, it wouldn't work. If he returned her to his marriage in these aforementioned situations during her postmarital waiting period, then he has only used up 1 divorce and he still has 2 more. In these cases where he just divorced her for the first time. Now, if he divorced her 3 times and then she enters her postmarital waiting period, he cannot bring her back to his marriage. Rather, she would complete her iddah, her postmarital waiting period, and then she is a free woman, meaning she can marry someone else. She cannot marry him again in this situation like this because he has used up his 3 divorces. And if a man divorces his wife 3 times in a single go, meaning with one statement, or separately with 3 separate statements, whether in one or in multiple sessions, then 3 divorces take place by ijma', the author said, meaning that by the consensus of all the Muslim scholars, there is no difference in opinion about this. If a man divorces his wife 3 times with one statement, or if he says it 3 times with 3 separate statements, or he says it 3 times in a single go with one statement, or he says that separately with 3 separate statements, whether in one or multiple sessions, then she is divorced by 3. He has used up his 3 divorces, meaning he cannot bring her back into his marriage by simply performing a new marriage contract. He would not be able to. Subhanallah. So again, if he divorces her 3 times in one statement, then it counts as 3 divorces. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They are not one divorce, they are 3. Some people try and claim that if a man divorced his wife with 3 divorces in one statement, then only one of them takes place. That's not true. The 3 of them would take place and she would not be lawful for him. Subhanallah. Yani, he would not be able to return her back into his marriage. She would be divorced. She has to wait her postmarital waiting period, but after that, she is a free woman. And if he said it 3 times using 3 different statements, then it also counts as 3 divorces. Subhanallah, when it comes to marriage, whether getting married or getting divorced, it is not a matter that one can joke about. One needs to take this matter seriously. One needs to take this matter seriously. Subhanallah. And some people, out of anger, may Allah protect us and protect the Muslims, they say a statement in which they divorce their wife with 3 times. They used up their 3 divorces. And then they go to a sheikh, for example, and they tell him what happened. And if that sheikh was not a learned person and someone who fears Allah, and this happens, they give a judgment at times which contradicts what came in the religion. They tell him, oh, don't worry, that counts as 1 divorce. It doesn't count as 3. Or they might tell him, go and donate some money and then she's lawful for you. You can be with her and you can do what husbands and wives do. Yani you can be with her sexually, intimately. And subhanallah, this goes against the religion. Because if a man divorced a woman 3 divorces, she is not lawful for him. Subhanallah. Yani he would not be able to return her back to his marriage. And some people continue living like that for years and years, and they would be fornicating and they don't know that they are fornicating because they are not in a valid marriage. May Allah protect us and protect the Muslims. Allahumma ameen. Then the author said, the chapter of the obligations of the heart and its sins. Section on the obligations of the heart. The heart is the leader of the organs. It is the leader of all of the body parts. So all of the body parts are connected to the heart in that sense. The intention to use these instruments is initiated in the heart. Yani the intention to use the different body parts, it starts in the heart. The author said, The heart is the organ that drives all other body parts, and it is the organ in which one establishes the intention. Thus, it is very important to take care of one's heart. Amongst the obligations of the heart are the correct belief in Allah and in what He revealed. So whoever doesn't believe in Allah correctly, then this person is a non-Muslim. This person is a kafir. Like the one who claims that Allah gets angry. This is kufr, yani it takes the person out of Islam because anger is an emotion. Or the one who claims that not everything happens by the will of Allah. This person would be denying that everything happens by the will of Allah, and hence they wouldn't be a Muslim. Or like the one who claims that Allah, God, is in the sky, or that He is sitting on the Arush, the throne, or that Allah is something in the sky that comes down every night, a'udhu billah, or anything like that that attributes something to Allah from the attributes of the creation, whether that is image, movement, stillness, size, dimension, being in a place, being in a direction. All of these are kufr beliefs. They are blasphemous beliefs and blasphemous statements if one were to say them. The author said, and the correct belief in the Messenger of Allah and in what was conveyed by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So a person must believe in every rule that was conveyed by the Prophet that it is correct. We must believe that everything the Prophet conveyed is correct. And objecting to anything that was revealed by him would be blasphemy. It would take the person out of al-Islam. Like those who object that the male gets twice as much as the female when it comes to inheritance. Or like those who say, I don't think women should wear the hijab. This is from the olden times. Subhanallah, such a person would not be a believer. Or if someone says, I will not pray, meaning the 5 obligatory prayers. I will not pray, they say, and then they say, prayer is not beneficial. Or I don't get any benefit out of praying. I don't need to pray if someone says that. A'udhu billah. This also goes against the religion, and this is a type of statement that would take the person out of Islam. Or those who claim that it is ugly and bad for a man to marry more than one wife. For this is something that Allah deemed permissible and revealed as such. So how can someone come and say that it's ugly? Allah said it is permissible. The Prophet said that this is something permissible. How can someone say that it is ugly? And the author said, the honoring within the heart of the well-known matters of the religion of Allah, such as the adhan, the call to prayer, and al-hajj, the pilgrimage. So also like fasting, or az-zakah, paying the zakah, or the Kaaba itself, or the prophets, the angels, paradise, praying, the book of Allah, the Quran, and so on. So these are matters, and anything like that are matters that the Muslim is obligated to honor in their heart, because these are matters that are well-known matters from the religion. So we need to respect them and uphold them and hold them in high regard. And the author said, loving Allah and His kalam. So it's an obligation to love Allah, and it's an obligation to love His kalam, which means the book of the Quran. And it's an obligation to love His Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the companions of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam. And that is because they supported the Prophet with their wealth and themselves by engaging in war to spread the religion. So they benefited the religion and they supported the Prophet with their wealth and even with their own selves, with their own bodies whenever they went out and they fought for the sake of Allah in order to spread the religion. And it's an obligation to love the al. The al, some of them said that it means the Muslim relatives of the Prophet. So all of the Muslim relatives of the Prophet, and there are many that exist nowadays whose lineage goes back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Some of the scholars said that it means his wives. That when they say the al of the Prophet, they said that means his wives. And it's an obligation to love the pious believers, the pious Muslims, whoever they are and wherever they are. We love them. Yani, even if they are from a different background than we are, even if they speak different languages, we love them. And the author said to be thankful to Allah by not using what Allah has granted one in disobedience of Him. So it's an obligation to thank Allah by not using the endowments He gave to commit sin. And there are two types of thanking. One is with the tongue, and this one is recommended. Like to say, for example, Alhamdulillah. This is thanking Allah with the tongue. This is the recommended thanking. Then you have an obligatory thanking, a mandatory thanking. And that is by not using the endowments of Allah to sin. And that is the one that is mentioned here. So if you want to be a thankful slave, then don't commit any sins. May Allah make us amongst the thankful slaves. Allahumma ameen. May Allah make us amongst those who do not commit any sins. Allahumma ameen. And the author said, and having patience. Having patience in fulfilling what is an obligation and avoiding what is forbidden and in bearing the hardship. So it's an obligation to be patient in fulfilling all of the obligations and in refraining from all of the haram. And it's also an obligation to be patient in bearing the hardship, whatever hardship one is afflicted with, in such a way that one does not commit a sin because of a hardship. For example, some people, if they are afflicted with poverty, they would resort to committing sins. So what a person needs to do is, if they were afflicted with poverty, they need to be patient. They need to be patient for the sake of Allah. So for example, some people, they wouldn't be patient with that, and rather they would resort to acquiring money through means that are sinful. And the author said, section on the sins of the heart. Amongst the sins of the heart are doubting in the existence of Allah. And this is kufr, this is blasphemy. If a person doubts, like to say, does Allah exist or does He not? This person would not be a Muslim. Also, amongst the sins of the heart is denying the destiny. And destiny is that Allah made everything the way that it is. That everything happens by the will of Allah. And He eternally knew it would be like that. For example, Allah the Exalted eternally knew that every one of us that is gathered here for this session now would be gathered for this session right now. Allah eternally knew that this would happen. Before the creations were created, Allah knew that this would happen. So if someone claims that anyone other than Allah brings from non-existence into existence, which is creating, then this person is not a Muslim. Then that person would not be a Muslim. Allah is the creator of everything, of us and our deeds, and Allah the Exalted has willed for things to be the way that they are. So everything happens by His will. And the author said, hating the companions, the al, or the pious believers. So we just finished mentioning in the obligations of the heart that it's an obligation to love the companions and to love the al and to love the pious Muslims. It's also sinful to hate the companions and to hate the al, whether that means the family, the Muslim family members of the Prophet, like his descendants, for example, or to hate the pious believers. Subhanallah. Now, if someone says that they hate all of the companions, this is kufr. This would take the person out of Islam, even if they say, I hate them all except 2 or 3 of them. That would still take the person out of Islam. Now, hating a Muslim in general, without an excuse, where there is, for example, we're saying hating a Muslim where there is ill thinking involved, then this is sinful. This is sinful. So a person doesn't have an excuse to be like that. As for hating the al, if someone is thinking ill of them, then this is sinful, of course. This is sinful if a person is thinking ill of the descendants of the Prophet or his wives, for example. And hating the pious believers, where one is thinking ill of them, is also sinful. Why would someone hate a pious person? What does it mean when we say this person is pious? It means they don't commit any sins. It means they don't disobey Allah. Subhanallah. May Allah make us amongst the pious Muslims. So if someone is like that, why would you hate them? So if a person is thinking ill of a pious Muslim, then they're sinful for that, of course, because it's sinful to think ill of a Muslim, whether they are pious or not. If one does not have an excuse to think what they're thinking about them, and it's ill thinking, then it's not permissible for one to think like that, to assume something bad about them, for example. And the author said, believing oneself to be absolutely safe from the punishment of Allah. So, for example, if someone kept sinning, and they kept sinning, they kept committing sins, and then they said, Allah will not punish me. Meaning by that He cannot punish me, then this is kufr. So again, if someone keeps committing sins and they say that Allah will not punish them, meaning that Allah cannot punish them, then this person has fell into al-kufr, blasphemy. They wouldn't be judged as a Muslim because this is believing that Allah is powerless or unable. This is attributing inability to Allah and powerlessness, and this is kufr, of course. So if someone said that Allah is powerless over punishing them, then they wouldn't be Muslim because they are essentially saying that Allah is weak. A'udhu billah. And the author said, absolute despair of the mercy of Allah. So again, if someone said that Allah cannot forgive them, meaning that He is powerless over this, then this is blasphemy. And arrogance in relation to accepting the truth or in looking highly to oneself and down at others. If someone knows that something is the truth, but they still don't accept it, then this is arrogance. Like, for example, a woman says something to a man, but he didn't accept it from her because she is a woman, then this is arrogance. Or if a person, if someone said something to someone that is older than them, and that one who is older than them did not accept it from them because the one advising them is younger, then this is arrogance. And subhanAllah, many people, they have arrogance. They have arrogance in them. It is not something good. It is something that is ugly. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to protect us from having arrogance in us. Allahumma ameen. Likewise, another type of arrogance, because arrogance, it has two types. And the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned this. So another type of arrogance is looking down at others while thinking highly of oneself. So we mentioned that one type of arrogance is not accepting the truth from someone while knowing that what they're telling you is the truth, either because they're younger than you, or they are poor and you are wealthy, for example, or you are one gender and they are another gender, or something like that, or they are from a different background than you, or they speak a different language than you, or they hold a different job position, rank than you do, or something like that. This is arrogance. If for a reason like that, one rejects the truth from the one saying it, then this is arrogance. Also, the Prophet taught us that another type of arrogance is for someone to look down at others while thinking highly of themselves. Yani they think that they are better than others. And they look down at others. And this is something that is, subhanallah, it is not good for a Muslim to have at all in their heart. And also insincerity, الرياء, which is doing the good deeds for the sake of recognition from people. So if someone does the good deeds for the sake of Allah and for the people, then they still are insincere, and it is a major sin. Whether they only did it for the recognition and the admiration and praise of the people, or whether they coupled that with doing it as well for the sake of Allah. Still, this person is falling into a major sin, because Allah the Exalted does not accept the good deed from any Muslim except if it was done completely, fully, wholly, for His sake only. Yani, without seeking anything else from the people, without seeking any recognition or any praise, or for people to look at you in a certain light or anything like that. Rather, the person is doing it completely, genuinely, sincerely for the sake of Allah. And that's why the pious people in general, they strive to hide many of their deeds, many of their good deeds. They strive to hide them, so to protect them from insincerity. Then the author said, and believing that one will not be forgiven by Allah. So it means that, for example, someone doesn't repent because they think that Allah will not forgive them. Then it is a major sin to think this about Allah. This is not thinking well of Allah in this sense. They are thinking that Allah will not forgive them. So the scholar said this is a major sin, to think this about Allah, because Allah forgives the sins of whomever He wills from the Muslims. So how do you know that Allah will not forgive you? So such a person, this person who is saying this, they are not saying that Allah cannot forgive them. No. They are saying that Allah will not forgive them, and they mean because of how sinful they are. Now, if a person said Allah cannot forgive me, then that would be kufr, of course. They're saying that there's something that God can't do. A'udhu billah. And the author said, envy, al-hasad, which is to feel bitter about another Muslim having a particular endowment, and then to act in accordance to this feeling, whether by a firm intention or a physical deed. So we are not saying this is merely the feeling of jealousy or the feeling of envy. No. Rather, it is working in accordance with it, with that feeling, to harm that Muslim. So, for example, someone saw a Muslim with a new car and he felt envious, he felt jealous, he felt that feeling of envy. So, what did he do? That feeling pushed him to go and scratch up that car or put a dent in it or defect it in some way. Or he did something else to try and make him lose the car altogether. This is a major sin. This is a major sin. If he had the firm intention to do something like that, even if he didn't do it, this is also sinful. Because he had the firm intention to disobey Allah. And brothers and sisters, remember that the intention is a deed. It's a deed of the heart. Now, if he doesn't do it, then he won't have the sin of the actual doing, but he gets the sin of firmly intending to disobey Allah. So he would be obligated to repent from that. Subhanallah. And we will stop here, insha'Allah ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك